A woman so desperate for revenge from her estranged husband that she took the lives of their 3 innocent children. It starts with Dora Buenrostro. She was married to Alejandro Buenrostro, who also goes by the name Alex. Alex worked as an auto refinisher and painter. The couple and their 3 kids were living in Los Angeles all together like one big happy family. But Dora and Alex started to head toward a rocky relationship, and it started to get increasingly worse. They argued all the time, big arguments, big blow-ups. So in 1990, Dora decided she had had enough of the fighting, and she packed up all her things. She took the 3 kids with her in the car and brought them over to live in an apartment in San Jacinto in Riverside County. They left Alex behind, but Riverside County isn't super far away from Los Angeles, so they were still relatively close enough where they could visit as needed. It's the nice crisp evening of October 25th, 1994. It's around 6 p.m. that Dora is spotted driving her car, a black Oldsmobile, with her 3 kids near the apartment in San Jacinto. There's 9-year-old Susanna, 8-year-old Vincente, and 4-year-old Deidre. Dora stopped and asked her neighbor David if she could borrow some cash for gas for her car. She told him she was strapped for cash, but needed the money to go visit her husband Alex in the city. Her neighbor David gave her the $10 she needed for the trip. Later that night, around 11 p.m., Dora shows up at her husband Alex's place in Los Angeles. She shows up unannounced and without the kids. From the moment she arrived, Dora was acting strange. She asked if she could hold her husband's firearm. Alex was like, okay, and removed the bullets from his firearm and then handed it to his wife. Dora inspected the weapon for a moment and then handed it back to Alex. Then he safely put it away and out of sight. As Alex was putting the weapon away, Dora took a knife out of the kitchen drawer. She was wearing red gloves and she was playing with the knife. She started making little stabbing motions towards Alex. Dora asked Alex if he was afraid to die. She threatens him with a knife and keeps creeping closer and tells him she wants to hit him where it hurts. You see, Dora was upset that they were no longer living together and that they're not a close couple anymore. And she had gone there that night to express those feelings to Alex and confront him. Dora took a few swings at Alex with the knife still gripped in her hand, but Alex managed to bob and weave out of the way. He managed to escape from Dora and leave the apartment to a safe location outside where he called the police. The police arrived around 1:20 a.m. They found Dora standing in the doorway, still wearing the red gloves and still holding the knife. Dora complied with everything the officers told her to do. They asked her to drop her weapon, and she did. They asked her questions about why she had come to Alex's apartment that night, and she answered them. Dora told the officers the reason for her visit was to pick up her youngest child from the father's place. She said she was upset that he hadn't brought her home from taking her shoe shopping. The police combed through Alex's apartment, and there was no sign of their youngest child, Deidre. Alex told the police that he didn't have Deidre, and that Deidre had been living with Dora and in her custody. Dora was like, no, I don't have Deidre. She's missing. The police told Dora she should go back home to her other children in San Jacinto and talk to her local police department to file a missing persons report. And Dora took off in her black Oldsmobile. Wednesday, October 26, 1994, 10:30 a.m., Dora enters the San Jacinto Police Department. She speaks to Officer Blaine Dillon. She tells him that her estranged husband has taken her youngest child 2 days earlier and he never brought her back home. The officer stated that unfortunately he could not intervene at that time because the child is in custody of its legal guardian. The police cannot intervene unless the child is at harm, or if there happened to be a court order that forbids Alex to care for or see his children. But there was no such court order for him. He's clean, and there's nothing the police could do for her. Dora left the station. She was next seen by her sister Angela at a nearby gas station in her black Oldsmobile riding solo. Dora had just gotten a car wash. October 27th, 1994, about 3 a.m. Dora's neighbors claimed to have heard a really loud thump from Dora's apartment. Just one thump, and that was it. At 6:40 a.m., Dora busts into the police station, and this time she is in a much more intense and manic state. She is frantic when she tells the police that her estranged husband, Alex, had just shown up to her apartment unannounced and acting crazy, and that he's wielding a knife. Dora explained that her 3 children, Susan, Vincente, and Deidre, were inside the apartment sleeping, and she's scared that her husband is going to do something to hurt their 3 kids. Now the kids are in actual danger. The police can intervene. The police waste no time at all. They spring into action and make their way to the crime scene at Dora's apartment. Upon arrival at Dora Buenrostro's apartment, they discover the lifeless bodies of 2 of the couple's children, 9-year-old Susanna and 8-year-old Vincente. It appeared that while they were sleeping, Susanna and Vincente suffered knife injuries to the neck. Although the murder weapon nor Dora's husband were found at the scene, but for sure some sort of blade was used on the kids. They searched every inch of the apartment looking for 4-year-old Deidre, but she was nowhere to be found. Now you would think that not being found in that apartment would be a good thing. Maybe there's hope Deidre is still alive, but unfortunately that's not the case. Deidre's body was discovered the evening of October 27, 1994. A group of children were actually the ones to discover the body in an abandoned post office in the Lakeview section of Riverside County. Deidre's lifeless body was still strapped into her car seat. Both the seat and Deidre were covered in red bodily fluid. She too sustained injuries to the neck, just like her siblings, but her injuries came from a blade as well as a ballpoint pen. Although Deidre was the last of the children to be discovered, it was determined that she was actually killed 2 days earlier than her siblings. No murder weapon was discovered at the scene, no weapon at Dora's apartment, and no weapon at the abandoned post office. The police decided to bring Dora and Alex both in for questioning together at the same time. The police went in hard for Alex, drilling him with questions. Alex told the police that he was innocent. He was at his apartment and then he went to work the day it all went down, so he couldn't have been responsible. The police said they would check into his alibi, but this is when things started to get a little weird. Dora wasn't acting like a grieving mother of 3. And who is to say really how one should act after something as traumatic as this, but something was not right. Dora was like giggling and laughing and making jokes with the police officers, and even laughing and making jokes with Alex, the husband she claims is responsible for the death of her children. That is insane. Dora mentioned how tired she was more often in this interview than how sad, distraught, devastated, or how heartbroken she was. Yeah, so Dora botched the interview. She was super suspicious, like suspect number 1. The police check in on Alex's alibi, and he's clean. One of Alex's neighbors confirmed that she heard his shower running in Alex's apartment the morning of the crime. And she was looking out her window later that morning and saw him exit the apartment building, get in his car, and drive away at 7:20 a.m. With the distance between Alex's LA apartment and Dora's apartment, it meant there was no way Alex could have made it there in time to commit these crimes. So it's definitely not Alex. So now the finger points only to the wife and mother, who has been weird since the get-go. Dora was arrested on October 29, 1994, for taking the lives of her 3 children. The trial took place in November of 1995, 13 months after this all went down. The defense argued that Dora was not competent enough to stand trial, but the jury disagreed, so the trial went on. Dora, as the defendant, went on the stand to testify on her own behalf. She showed a lack of remorse for her actions while standing trial. She claimed that she was framed by the police for this crime and specifically pointed to Officer Blaine Dillon, the officer who helped her at the police station on the morning of October 27, 1994. The officer who rushed to her apartment in an attempt to save her 3 children from harm, from death. Dora's apartment neighbors testified that Dora and Alex argued a lot. They also said Dora did have very strange behavior and was very unfriendly and even a little scary. One neighbor stated that the kids were often locked out of their apartment and were only let in to use the bathroom. Evidence was brought forward that was discovered in the trunk on Dora's black Oldsmobile. They found the red gloves she was wearing the night of the 25th when she threatened Alex's life. The red gloves were covered in blood that DNA testing confirmed to be that of the youngest daughter, Deidre. Along with the gloves was a camera case and Dora's purse, both of which were covered in Deidre's red body fluid. Hair was found on Deidre's body that did not belong to her, but it belonged to her mother, Dora. And lastly, they found tire tracks at the scene of the crime belonging to the tire tread of none other than Dora's Oldsmobile. The jury took 90 minutes to decide that Dora was indeed responsible for not only the death of her children, but also with the intent to frame her husband, Alex. She was charged with first-degree murder. After the jury's conviction, Dora still carried on ranting that her husband Alex is the real culprit and she's innocent and that the police are awful and framing her and yada yada yada. After the verdict, she verbally attacked everyone in the courtroom, including her own attorney. Dora was raging and lashed out at the police, the prosecutors, anyone who would listen that her husband Alex was guilty and that she was 100% innocent. Even though Dora's mother, Arcelia Zamudio, begged the court to spare her daughter's life, they ignored her cries for help, and rightfully so. What Dora did was horrible and unforgivable. I can't believe someone can be so ruthless and cruel. She was sentenced to the death penalty on October 2nd, 1998. Thus concludes the crazy story of Mother Dora Buenrostro. That one was intense. What we can all take away from this story is that not all moms are good moms, and this particular mom is definitely one of the worst. I have almost no words, except why didn't Alex Buenrostro, the husband, go and check on the kids after Dora's little stunt on October 25th, when Dora was playing with a knife and trying to harm him? Or why didn't he try to file like an assault charge on Dora or try to get the custody of his kids? Maybe he was just used to Dora being weird, and maybe he didn't think she was capable of actually harming their kids. What do you guys think? And what true crime cases do you want us to cover for the next episode? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Brandi, and this has been Killer Bites.